Do you think it's schools that should teach children good manners, or do you think it's a job for parents? And if it is a parent's job, are they failing? 0207 862 2222, that's the number. Do give us a ring. We're talking about this because of David Beckham. He's had a go at Manchester United players for their bad manners and behaviour. The club's been taking part in a post-season tour of Asia, with one player being seen to be putting his middle finger up at a fan and another appeared to push a supporter. David Beckham isn't at all happy about it. Have a listen.
You respect the fans, you respect the fact that they're turning up, paying money and wanting you to sign and take pictures. You respect that. I don't see that. I don't see it with, I'm not saying it's all of the players, I'm saying it's one or two that are disrespecting that, and I don't like that.
I mean, putting up the middle finger to fans, for goodness sake. So we started to worry about whether good manners have just gone out the window. Do you think we've forgotten how to be polite, kind and respectful? And if we've forgotten, whose job is it to teach us good manners? Is it up to parents, or don't they know? Should schools be leading the way with this one? Let's start with you, Cristo, on this. I mean, everybody says that schools should be doing everything, teaching children to clean their teeth, teaching children how to cook, teaching children how to do basic economics so they can balance their books. Should they also be teaching children manners?
I don't think it should be a curriculum subject. I think schools have a very small part to play in it. I remember when I was at school, you used to have to stand up if another teacher came into the room. You used to have to keep your blazer on and ask to take it off, all those sorts of things. So I think to that point, schools should do it. But no, I think it's a parent's job. I think ultimately it's a parent's job to teach manners. My mother still gets to a door and will wait for me to open it for her.
Can't believe you make her wait.
She goes, yeah.
How is your mother waiting by a door? Run to open the door for your mother. Run.
Sprint behind. Because it's really, really important. Sometimes I think about this a lot. I think about manners an awful lot. It really irritates me that we've lost our manners, that we've lost asking whether you can leave the table, waiting until someone gets off the train first before you get on there. All of those things, it can ruin my day. If I forget to thank someone when I give way, if they give way to me when I'm in the car, it can ruin my day, and vice versa. If someone doesn't thank me when I've waited, it can drive me mad.
What do you think your mother would say if she knew what you called me earlier today?
When I said babes.
You said babes.
I said, hello, Vanessa, babes, or something.
I said, did you just call me babes? I said, I beg your pardon.
In her words.
No, I'm old enough to be your mother, and you called me babes, and you didn't ask me how I felt about that. And you can see from my face how I felt.
In her words, she would slap my thighs.
Well, I hope she will. I hope she will when you tell her how
but
offended I am by that. Let's move on to Carrie, whose manners are impeccable. Do you think that manners have deteriorated? And do you think that the schools need to step in and pick up the slack there?
I think that manners are modelled. I think that teachers and parents, and particularly, weirdly, I think this is about teachers. I have sat in so many school receptions and heard teachers speak despicably to teenage people, and I've just thought, this is completely wrong. How are these kids going to grow up believing they've got any sense of power or can show up as themselves when you talk to them like that? You talk to them like they're dirt. So I think that manners have to be modelled. I also think that children grow at different rates, and for some of our children, like mine that have special needs, it might be a little bit longer before they learn that how to be bilingual in this stuff, because I think that is also part of it, is knowing actually in this environment, this is the etiquette of this space. Sometimes etiquette is quite difficult for people to grasp, so I think we do need to cut those people some slack.
On the other hand, if it's hammered home from a very, very young age, children don't necessarily have to get their heads around it or understand it. They're just effectively trained to do it.
If it's modelled.
Say thank you, you say please, you stand up, you wait for other people to be served before you eat. Don't eat with your mouth full. You've seen it, you've been told it from birth. That's it. There are no options.
David went for therapy before we got married. And he said, how will I make sure that my children know they're loved? And the therapist said, love their mother. And I think it's the same with manners. If your children see how you speak to one another, that's what they will model.
They're sponges. They're going to take everything in that they see. And if they're not seeing it in schools or at home, they're going to behave the way that they think is acceptable to behave. And if they're modelling off footballers as well. My son's massively into football and loves Garnacho. Was he the guy who put his middle finger up?
Yes.
He loves him. I don't want my son modelling off. So at home, it is vital. And I do think we're letting them down because we're this all day long. We're like this and we're ignoring our children and they're seeing us with our heads down, not looking at them in the eyes and saying hello and thank you and please. So they're going to model that as well. So I think it's vital that we show it at home first and foremost, and it is a responsibility of a teacher as well.
OK, let's talk to Samantha in Essex. Samantha, hello, thanks so much for ringing. What do you think?
Hello, Vanessa. I do think it's very important for parents to be role modelling and teaching manners from a very early age. I work with children and parents, supporting with parenting, and it's so important. Children learn empathy from the word sorry. Thank you shows that we are grateful. Even from a young age, under 1, I was teaching my son and my granddaughter currently the word tar when we're sharing.
Yes. And do you think sometimes it doesn't get passed on because parents just, not their fault at all, but they just haven't been shown it themselves? They haven't been, as Carrie says, spoken to politely, treated empathetically, been dealt with gently. And if you've had a rough,
100%.
tough upbringing, and we've all heard it in supermarkets particularly, you hear people, talking to tiny toddlers in the most abusive, impolite, vulgar, crude way. And, if you're me, you have to really restrain yourself from saying, don't talk to that baby like that. Don't speak to them like that. Where's the kindness in your voice? If they haven't been shown it, Samantha, how are they supposed to show it?
Exactly. It's all about role modelling, and that's why there are parenting courses that you can access anywhere from your children's centres and your local health visiting services that I work with.
And do you think, though, that schools can step in, that, for example, school assemblies can be occasions when the whole school, all the children, get taught a little bit about manners and what they mean and why it's important and kind to be polite to other people, that sort of thing?
Definitely. I mean, even in nursery, before they hit the school statutory age, manners are taught within nurseries. I used to work in nurseries before I did the job that I did for about 20 years.
Yes.
And manners is, even lining up, that's part of manners because we are all waiting. It's stuff that we have to teach our children and role model to have a decent society, basically.
Yes,
I love the way that she's put that.
Charming,
Samantha
isn't
is
she?
doing not just the word, but the feeling behind the word. Like you say thank you, not just because you do, and that's what we taught as kids, just because you do. The idea is it makes you grateful.
Yeah.
I love that.
But it also breeds confidence, being able to speak as a teenager to people, looking in the mirror and saying thank you. This is all skills that we develop at such a young age that breeds confidence in us as adults.
Well,
and a decent handshake. I think very important to teach your children to shake hands firmly, don't you think? And a hug, not so much. A handshake.
You never shake someone's hand sitting down as well.
No.
And when I remember one of my dearest friends who I've known for over 30 years, and her mother still says when I see her, you stood up when I came into the room when I first met you. I stood up when I've done my back in, but I even stood up today when I came in because that's what you do.
Do you know the most polite man I've ever met in my entire life? The present company accepted. Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen. That man's manners. I have never seen anything like. He's like a courtly knight from a medieval romance. And if you sit at a table with him, it's kind not to go to the loo or leave the table because he's up and down like an absolute jack, and the fella can't eat at all. He's so busy offering the food to everybody else, pulling the chair out, jumping up and down. I hope he watches this. I hope he sees this. I hope he comes and joins me on the sofa. But I've never seen manners as impeccable in my life. Let's go to Maggie in Cambridgeshire. Hi, Maggie.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hello. Do you think manners have deteriorated over the years?
I do. I'm 80 years old. I was born to quite a deprived family.
Yeah.
Had to make my own way in life. I have 2 sons, both of who are just over 40, and one of them has 4 small children. I worked full-time, with my husband ran off with somebody else, and one of the most important things was something my father told me, and it was, give me the child from 0 to 5, and I will give you the man. What he was saying was, if that basic empathy, discipline, everything that we need in later life is not taught to the young person, it's almost like beating your head against a brick wall later on. I've been standing looking out of my kitchen window. I have some sheep in the backfield. Some of them have very small lambs. Others have big lambs. When those lambs are first born, the mothers dote on them. They do everything for them. As the lambs get bigger, I have seen a mother ewe belt her lamb and say, get away and go and play on your own. And even animals teach their young manners. And I think it's so sad that we have lost it. My sons will say that they had, if I said no, I meant no. And I'd go, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. And the third time, it was probably just a sharp smack across the back of the leg.
Okay, different subject about smacking children. We're very busy with manners, Maggie, here. But thank you very much, especially for the lesson from nature, which I think David Attenborough would approve of tremendously. Watch the sheep, see how they discipline their children with a cuff round the ear hole. Right, let's go to Diane in Northumberland. Hello, Diane.
Hi.
And you're very keen on instilling manners very early on in a child's life.
Oh, yes. They started, before they could talk, they were taught how to say please and thank you. That was really pushed into them, that they must say please and thank you. And when they went into school, they both had brilliant manners. Now, my little grandson, who goes into a shop after school, the staff in there always say, what a lovely, pleasant, well-mannered little boy. And that makes me so proud. But he was taught at home, before he went to school, about manners. But there's very few now have manners.
And I wonder, though, whether sometimes it's because the child is shy or not confident, you know, because it takes a certain kind of child to say the pleases and the thank yous, do you think? And some find it harder than others?
I think certainly those who are neurodivergent may find it a little bit trickier.
I was about to say that. My children are not going to be the ones that you're going... Not when they were younger. Oh, aren't they wonderful? They're not. They weren't going to be that. They were going to be the ones under the table in the restaurant. I wanted them reading the menu in French, but that wasn't going to happen. And I did end up with the ones on the iPads at the table. And that worked. I was just so grateful to get them out the house and able to understand how to eat as a family. That was my goal. If they were on an iPad or if they were not being so polite, then you know what? They will learn that, and they have learnt that. They've learnt it later, though.
But
I think that's a
that's
fair
due
point.
to parenting, though.
It is, but I think when we expect it, sometimes when that expectation is of a 10-year-old to just know all of the etiquette and know all of those social cues, not all children do know those social cues.
I remember the headmaster at my school when I was a little girl telling us to cover our mouths when we coughed, to cover our mouths when we yawned, and saying things like, we don't want to drive a big bus into that, close your mouth, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Sit up straight, you know, keep your back straight, lift your fork and your knife and your soup spoon to your mouth. Don't put your head down in the thing as if you're a pig at a trough. Raise your cutlery to your mouth. You know, it was all taken deadly seriously, and woe betide us if we hadn't done it. Blimey. Let's go to Tonya in Staffordshire. Hello, you're responsible for your beautifully mannered family, Tonya. You've taught them all they know.
Yes, and I do believe it should be the parents installing it first, because then my son has now got 3 sons of his own, and I was at a family do with my grandson Toby, he's 8 now, but he was 7 at the time, and we're sitting eating with one of my uncle, his great uncle, and he stood up and he said, "Please, may I leave the table, Uncle Paul? I've finished now." And my Uncle Paul said, "Oh my word, what good manners is that? He's only 7."
So well done. You must feel very, very proud indeed.
I am very proud. And even my 4-year-old twin grandsons say, please, can I have a drink of squash, Nanny? You know?
Yes.
Manners are free.
Manners are free. Good point. Absolutely true. Manners are free. Well said.